If I could sit down with my 20-year-old self in the gym, I would have a lot to say, especially about training smarter, not just harder. Back in my 20s and even in my 30s, every workout was a war zone. I trained to failure on every set, every single one. And while I had the work ethic, the results didn't always match the effort. Fast forward to now, in my 40s, I still train hard, but I train wisely. And that makes all the difference. In this video, I'm walking you through the key differences in how I train now versus then, what I've learned along the way, and how science backs it up. So let's dive in. Hey, what's up guys? It's Daniel from DM Fitness. Let's rewind for a second. In my 20s, my training philosophy was simple. More is better. More sets, more weight, more volume, more intensity. I trained to failure on every set and often went beyond failure with drop sets, supersets, forced reps, you name it. Rest days, rare. Deloads, I didn't even know what that meant. If I wasn't sore the next day, I felt like I hadn't trained hard enough. My mindset was all about pushing harder. But what I didn't realize at the time was that constantly going to failure digs a recovery hole that you might not get out of in time before the next session. There's actually research to support this. A 2020 study found that training to failure increases muscle damage and sensor fatigue without necessarily giving better results in terms of hypertrophy, especially in trained individuals. It took me years to learn that more effort doesn't always mean more growth. Now, the question is what accounts for a trained individual? Is this 2 years of training, 5 years, or 10? In this study, in order to be considered as resistance trained, participants were required to have been training their lower limbs with a frequency of twice per week for at least the past 2 years prior to recruitment. So, if you have at least 2 years of serious weightlifting under your belt, you can say that you're an experienced lifter. And the findings in this study should also apply to you. In this study, 14 men had one leg randomly assigned to resistance training to muscle failure and the other to non-failure. Each leg was trained twice per week for 10 weeks. Vastus lateralis muscle cross-section area, pennation angle, fascicle length, and 1 repetition maximum were assessed at baseline and after 20 sessions. The electromyographic signal was assessed after the training period. Even though the resistance training to muscle failure leg did more number of repetitions and volume load than the non-failure leg, the study showed that resistance training to muscle failure or non-failure is similarly effective in promoting increases in muscle hypertrophy, strength, pennation angle, and fascicle length, while also resulting in similar muscle activation in trained individuals. That being said, of course, it's beneficial to work until muscle failure, but you don't need to break anterior muscles and joints each and every set. Having a rep or two in reserve will still do the work without putting too much strain on your central nervous system. Now that I'm in my 40s, my mindset and my method have both evolved. I still train hard, I'm still focused, but now I prioritize quality over quantity and longevity over ego. Instead of going to failure on every set, I usually stop 1 to 2 reps short. This is called reps in reserve. You can also measure it with RPE, rate of perceived exertion, which refers to how hard you think you are pushing yourself during exercise. It's subjective, which means that you decide how hard you feel you're working during physical activity. I talked about this in another video, which I will post the link in the description. And the cool part, research shows you can make nearly the same gains by training this way. A 2020 study found that leaving a few reps in the tank still stimulates hypertrophy but causes far less fatigue. This is great because in our 40s, the recovery is not the same as it was in our 20s. In this study by Lacerda and colleagues, they studied the effects of muscle failure and not to muscle failure in 10 untrained men. This is the difference from the previous study, where the participants were experienced trained individuals. In this study, they found that the non-muscle failure protocol with equal volume as muscle failure protocol produced similar strength and muscle hypertrophy gains. These results suggest that performing repetitions to muscle failure was not a determining factor for the chronic adaptations associated with resistance training. Hence, non-muscle failure training with equal volume than muscle failure could be an alternative training method for untrained individuals. If I could turn back time and start all over, I wouldn't do all the sets until muscle failure, especially those heavy in the 4 to 6 rep range. This would definitely prevent some of the injuries I've accumulated over the years. These days, my workouts are structured. I plan for the load weeks, I get proper rest, I listen to my body. I've also adjusted how I split my volume. In my 20s, I would crush chest day with 20 sets in one session. Now I'd rather spread that volume across 2 days, 10 sets each, and get better recovery and better stimulus. And believe it or not, I've actually built more muscle this way, and I've done it with fewer injuries. In your 40s, recovery becomes just as important as training. Sleep, stress management, and nutrition, they all play a bigger role. And your priorities shift too. I'm not training to impress anyone or to lift the heaviest weights possible. I'm training to stay strong, healthy, and capable for life. Mobility work, proper warm-ups, smarter periodization, these things matter. You might not bounce back the way you used to, and that's okay. Training smart means adapting, not quitting. Longevity is the goal now. I want to be lifting, hiking, and doing the things I love in my 50s, 60s, and beyond. So, what can you take away from all this? If you're in your 20s, use that recovery advantage, but don't waste it by overtraining or chasing perfection. You don't need to destroy yourself every workout to grow. If you're in your 30s, 40s, or beyond, know this. You don't need to train like a maniac to make progress. You need to train consistently, intelligently, and with purpose. Don't obsess over perfect form at the expense of loading the muscle, but also don't sacrifice technique just to chase the pump. This is the topic I touched on my previous video, and I will post the link in the description if you want to check it out. I still do sets to failure, I still incorporate drop sets, supersets, and even cheat reps. I know my body and I know on which exercises I can do forced reps. I do swing on some reps. I do use momentum on some exercises, but I don't exaggerate. Balance is key. Train with intention, recover with purpose, and above all, play the long game. If I knew back then what I know now, I could have saved myself years of frustration, plateaus, and preventable injuries. How has your training changed over the years? If you're in your 40s like me, what strategies have helped you stay consistent and injury-free? Drop a comment below, hit that like button if this helps you out, and subscribe for more real, no bullshit fitness content. And if you need a custom tailored training and nutritional regimen, don't hesitate to check DN Fitness Coaching. I coach each client personally. Thanks for watching. Until next time, train smart and stay strong.